Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Three rounds in the books, and it was dominance personified 1 week ago. For Eduardo Radice, it was a jump back to the top of the SimSpeed Championship standings, but at a circuit where neither he nor his nearest championship rival, Jacob Reed, have ever managed to win around this track. This is a normal season opener that this season, for the first time, moves on about. We'll see you here right now, here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Tracker for your 4th round of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Welcome everybody to Racing Action. My name is Jake Sperry. Along with me for the ride, as per usual this season, is Taylor Mills. Dan Yeaman in the production truck here today as we will take our look down over to one of the most fabled circuits in all of of the world. We're not running the full 26 kilometers, the green hell, so to speak, but we will move into southwest Germany and a little look at what makes racing so great just between Dusseldorf and Frankfurt. I tell you what here, Taylor, this is a track which will command the respect of all these drivers.
It certainly is. This circuit has been around for decades at this point, and at no point in that time has it ever got worse. 16 corners, and it's a great mix of low, medium, and high-speed turns. And look how many just flat-out runs we're going to have. Between 15 and 1, huge overtaking spot. Between 4 and 5, bit of a cheekier overtaking spot. All the way up the hill from 7 up to turn 10 is going to be a great overtaking opportunity. And of course, down into the Vidal chicane. I think the best part about this circuit for me is that switchback nature. Every single right-hand corner is followed very shortly by a left-hander. So even if you do manage to get your car up alongside early, you are going to be battling the car to your left, to your right, for at least 3 or 4 corners before a move is completed. Pair that with the very low tire deg we're going to have here tonight. All of these drivers are going to be pushing absolutely flat out for every single lap of this race.
I'm getting words of 29 degrees Celsius track temperature. It is right in the wheelhouse here today for everyone to get themselves ready and situated. As far as the iRacing Championship goes, Eduardo Radice's victory was enough to pull him up in front. 15 points to the good after week 3 with Jacob Reed behind him and Volta Lux then into 3rd position. The chase then, Emil Bernstorff, Florian Kammerer, Anthony Catt and James Byrne, with Renato Augusto's work in the later splits pulling him up to 8th. Paulo Reagan finds himself 9th on consistency, and Jorge Martinez rounding out the top 10 of this category. But when it comes to your SimSpeed Championship, a little bit more open. So Eduardo Radice finding himself on top by 7 over Jacob Reed. Volta Lux still in 3rd and Emil Bernstorff 4th. But you look down the order, you see drivers like Edward Apari-Ari still in 9th position in the championship, Taylor. To say that it's still an open book, we talked about this quite a bit. Drivers can still go out there and make their challenges and say they are top 5 worthy.
Yeah, look, it's still a long way to go in this championship, and I think the most intriguing part is just how close everyone is from 6th on downwards. Just on this first page, we've got 2 different pairs of drivers that are absolutely equal on points. Even after tonight's race, we're still going to have 20 more opportunities for everyone to score some points inside that top 10 in the SimSpeed Championship. So, you know, there's plenty of time to go. And again, the best part is the drivers are going to have a very long season in front of them and are going to be able to take steps forward in terms of their own performance and maybe even challenge for those higher spots on the table.
60 laps then here today, 308.8 kilometers at a circuit that has hosted the Luxembourg Grand Prix, the German Grand Prix, and the European Grand Prix in its history. 2 tyre compounds must be used, the soft, mediums, and hards, and we'll be expecting mediums and softs today. DRS available from the start of lap 3 here as of the rules and regulations that this car was built under. And of course, your previous winners in this championship being Jorge Martinez last time we were here in 2024 to start the season, and then the other 2 times before that, Matteo Ugolotti. Then, so the Italians have done well, and the Spaniards. So will this be a case of going back to Italy, to Spain, or somewhere else around this wonderful Nürburgring track? Taylor, we are just about looking towards qualifying, but pit lane loss, not much. But as we're expecting a 1-stop today, look at the tyre life projections. We could go upwards of 46 laps on the soft tyre. I would be expecting 30 and 30.
Yeah, could you imagine if someone just went for the entire distance on the race on a set of hards? Absolutely going the full Alex Albon. It's definitely not the fastest way to make it to the end of today's race. As I mentioned, we've got that really, really low tire deg. So it does mean you're going to be able to push everything all the way. Here's your projected strategies. Theoretical fastest looking like 16 laps on the mediums, and then go all the way to the end on the set of softs. Or dump those mediums after 10 laps and then do 2 25 lap stints on the softs. Again, you said it yourself, spare another option, split it right down the middle. Of course, that was the winning strategy from earlier on today. So Eduardo Radice, the winner of that earlier race, perhaps going to employ that strategy again today. But there are some options out there on a very durable compound of tyre. So I'm going to be interested to see if someone does go for something a little bit different.
And I'm interested with qualifying at the moment because it looks a little jumbled up as things currently stand with the lap times coming in. It is the German Florian Kammeyer who's currently 6/10 quicker than anybody else, but second laps are soon about to be coming through as we run up through the Michael Schumacher S over to the Xiaomi curve. This is the driver's second overall right now. Alex Hagland, 2 starts, 2 first lap instances, definitely looking to try and avoid that today.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't make it 3 for 3 because it certainly doesn't make for interesting racing. But of course, when the pressure is on, when there's so few opportunities to get the result you want, you are going to be pushing into turn 1, into every single corner on the track. Hagland, definitely one of those drivers that's been trying to do that so far this season. Eduardo Rodis, though, jumps to the top of the timing screens with a 1:27.676, which is 0.2 of a second clear, nearly 0.3 of Walter Lux, as the driver that was on provisional poles now fallen all the way down to 5th place.
Yeah, so differences being made out there in qualifying trim. And I look around and I see Jacob Reed very out of position and not on track, which indicates to me that he's had an issue on his second qualifying lap out there, and he's stuck on a 1:30.1 at the moment in 11th place. So could be at real risk here of having a lot of work to do today. 28.7 by Kent Nielsen. That'll be good enough to jump up. Jason Anderson, who had a retirement on his debut start last time out at Suzuka, has just put the car on the front row.
And who saw that one coming? Of course, he had a huge gap to slot himself in between Walter Lux and Eduardo Rodis. And with Jacob Reed being a little bit out of the picture in this qualifying session, it did create a wonderful opportunity for someone who perhaps we haven't seen up there before to slot themselves onto that front row. So it looks like at the moment, Rodis is going to have a brand new challenger down into turn 1 this season.
Well, a big challenge is going to be needed as we focus with Adam Webb running a bit of papaya out there at this stage and trying to improve on a 1:32.0 right now. Currently P17, and at 28.9 is enough to move to the 6th row of the grid as that comes over. Nick Burke looking for a time over the line. 29.8 it stays, so remains in the 16th position with that qualifying time. So Burke, not much can be done, and the only other driver out there who I think is on an outlap currently is Florian Kammeyer, but it's going to run out of time and is on a set of medium compound tyres, just trying to get some more data out there. Was happy with his first time out there, P6 it looks like he will start. That will probably be everything out there at this moment in time for qualify, but a real shake-up that we did not expect out here today from all of these drivers. We were not expecting a topsy-turvy grid order here at the Nürburgring.
No, but out of position, of course, Jacob Reed is going to be the highlight of this qualifying session. We know he can come back from those deficits. He had to come back a little bit at Phillip Island after certainly not a great start there, but of course it wasn't as far down the grid as he is today. He's going to have 15 cars between him and Eduardo Rodis, and with a track with a turn 1 as tight as this, it's going to be very difficult to get through there clean.
5,500 strength of field, and Eduardo Rodis will be on your pole position. 1:27.676, almost 0.2 clear of Jason Anderson Jr., who will be alongside him on the front row. Row 2 is going to house Walter Lux, who sits 3rd in the championship, along with George van Rensburg. Great qualifying from the South African. He'll go from 4th. It's then Alex Hagland, who's trying to avoid lap 1 calamity. He goes from 5th. Florian Kammeyer is going to go from 6th position, with the consistent James Burns start to this season going from 7th. He'll have Anthony Catt there in 8th place. It is then your winner from 12 months ago, well 13 months ago now at this point, Jorge Martinez. He'll have to go from 9th. Kent Nielsen will round out the top 10, with Emily Van Camp making her first start of the season from Melbourne. She'll go from 11th, with Adam Webb in P number 12. Brad Newman will start in 13th. Early morning start start as well for Brad, with Paul O'Regan, the perennial top 10 finisher, in 14th place, with Jason Green and Nick Burke, two veterans of this championship, both from the United States, both on row number 8. And then there's the big one, Jacob Reed, having to start from 17th position on the grid today. He's got a brand new starter alongside him. Guillaume de Rugna will be going from 18th place, and two drivers unable to set a time in qualifying. Connor Pooler in the number 12 machine and the number 18 of Leonardo Bravo. They are split today by their iRacing 20 cars here today around this track, as we take a little look as these drivers cycle on through and get themselves ready on the grid. We do have 2 minutes to get ourselves situated for these drivers to go on through as we speed on back to the final row of the grid, where we will see those drivers who have not set a time, Connor Pooler and Leonardo Bravo. But expect these drivers to be looking at their strategy. Most have gone onto a set of the medium tyres, with the exception of Kent Nielsen, Adam Webb and Leonardo Bravo, who are starting on the soft compound of tyre. So they could be going long on their initial strategy as we wait for Jason Anderson Jr. to grid up in the final few seconds to ready himself for this race. He'll have 2 seconds, he'll have 1 second, and I think he will miss the start. So we'll have to go from the pit lane here, which is a shame from the front. So less of a challenge now for Eduardo Radice as the green flag drops and we are underway. Great start by George Van Rensburg. Great start by James Byrne, who gets himself a decent launch. Van Rensburg challenging for the race lead against Eduardo Radice into the very typical, tricky turn number 1 out there on track. Adam Webb's had a great start as he's launched himself through the order. A few drivers trying to avoid dramas out there on the start. One car's gone straight on into the barriers. It's Emily Van Camp.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what happened to Emily there. I think we're going to get a replay of that in a moment so we can see, but it looks like a touch of contact down at turn 1 with Jacob Reed, yeah. Her car gets turned into the side of the car alongside her, and at that point there's absolutely nothing she can do. Straight on into the barrier at turn 2, and also collecting, I think, I want to say, that was, yeah, it was Leonardo Bravo as well.
So Leonardo Bravo is going to be on the back foot, started on the softs, is missing the entire front nose cone of his car, and he's going to have to try and navigate back through the pack to try and make this race happen. Radice leads, Van Rensburg second, James Byrne up to third out there at the moment. Lux and Kammeyer fourth and fifth. Some great movers off the start. Jacob Reed already up 6 spaces off of the get-go. Got away with a little bit of damage. Maybe he's got some to the front left of his wing end plate, which is pushed in slightly right now at the moment. So he isn't fully unscathed from his contact with Van Camp, but not what you want on the opening lap of the race.
Yeah, no, that was definitely where the majority of the damage was. And unfortunately for him, the Nürburgring is a track that requires a very high amount of downforce, so he's going to have to struggle for that. But there is that fight for second that we got going on. Van Rensburg versus James Byrne. Byrne being so aggressive off the start, making up all those spots into turn 1, makes up another 1 lap later and finds himself in second place already.
Yeah, it's wonderfully done out there, and up into second. Into the pits now comes Leonardo Bravo. New front wing required, and will have to be back out and away. But the good news is, can probably go onto a hard tyre or a medium tyre potentially to the end, but it looks like it will be another set of the softs to go out and say, I will do this all over again. 10.5 seconds the pit stop will take. Down the hill into the Goodyear Cara, and now back up off of the hairpin, and now back towards the top side of the circuit through the Michael Schumacher S, that fast left and right, and up to the top of the crest to Xiaomi corner, then the left that comes along. We look a little bit further back though as they start scrapping, as Martinez has now lost out. Jacob Reed up inside the top 10 gets it done on the exit of Goodyear.
There he talks about how Jacob Reed can make those positions up, and even with that damage, he's still chipping his way through the field. Already up 7 positions and getting past Jorge Martinez relatively early. But there's Leonardo Bravo back down pit lane. I think he's going to have had a spin at some point, but that is going to be a tow.
Yeah, I think he's just pulled the car over to one side and retired the car. So Leonardo Bravo, I think, is going to call this one day done. Radice, fastest lap of the race. Lap 3, DRS now available for all of these drivers, but you've got to be within 1 second of the car in front to go and activate it. So Radice is already clear in that regard, and Van Rensburg is desperately going to be looking behind at Volta Lux and Florian Kammeier, who are there on screen, 4th and 5th. This is the sort of day that these two drivers are looking at and saying, what more do you want? Now, here's what happened with Van Kamp and Jacob Reed. You're always looking for a bit of room. Van Kamp takes a natural line middle of the road. Jacob Reed just doesn't spot it.
And it's weird, there is a lot of netcode involved in that one as well. And usually I'm happy to sit back and look at one of those and be like, look, it's contact, it was going to happen anyway. But you look at the body language of Van Kamp's car, you look at the body language from Reed's car, it's just a bit of contact that was never, ever going to happen. And it's a really unfortunate way to end Emily Van Kamp's first race in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour this season. And of course, such a shame that she collects Leonardo Bravo on the way out as well.
It's such a shame. It's such an early morning for her, and it ends after about 15 seconds worth of run. Jacob Reed got a very nice launch. You can see him really high on the revs, already up to 3rd gear and trying to ride out any wheel spin there in that 3rd gear in the middle of the corner. And there's not much you can really say about that, except there's contact there and there's not much you can do. We got a car down into the pits, and it's Jacob Reed who's just made the call to jump in at the end of lap 3 of this race. So has got the damage to the front wing. It's going to need to make that wing change, but Jacob Reed, I think, might be staring down the barrel of trying to get 57 laps on a set of softs.
I was about to say exactly the same thing, Sparrow. We're going to watch it here as that car goes up on the jacks. The tyres come off, a brand new set go on, and it is those red-walled soft tyres. 3 laps in, front wing change, 57 laps on a set of softs. Jacob Reed, go at it.
Well, if anybody can be a tyre whisperer, it is him who can go out there and make stuff happen, and he knows how important it is now to damage limit here around this circuit. He missed the season opener here last year due to a PC issue. That cost him a lot of time, so was certainly hoping to try and stay out of trouble there and manage that through, as it looks like through on that goes everyone on Jason Anderson Jr., who looks like he's just dropped the 3 places then, trying to stay out of trouble out there at the moment. But for the moment, Adam Webb here finds himself in the middle of one here. Alex Hagland behind him, Kent Nielsen there as well. Nielsen and Webb, very close friends, through the Falcon Bogan with DRS. Here comes Kent to the Vidal chicanery. Hagland trying to hold around the outside. The Swede up against the Canadian and just getting the clearance there. Kent, pick that one off.
Yeah, great move from Kent Nielsen there, taking advantage of that slipstream and setting himself up wonderfully down the inside of the chicane. The extra grip on those soft tyres, giving him the chance to break deep into the corner and just send Alex Hagland really wide into that first exit. Here comes Hagland back down the inside of turn 1. He's going to go a little bit deep, but he's still going to get the advantage over Kent Nielsen, who even after setting up that great move is going to have to do it all over again.
Yeah, and this is where it's medium versus soft tyre, and Kent Nielsen needs the clearance quickly because Adam Webb is immediately going to be looking at Anthony Catt and Volta Lux and all those drivers here in the field. Everybody else is going to be staring down and saying, well, if you can't get by Alex Hagland, you're going to have a very tough day at the office. Here's Guillaume Darunia out there on track. 6,000 iRacing for the Frenchman out of Rouen in France, a driver who's more known in the F1 circle with the Codemasters video games out there. He's been a PSGL champion in the past when it's come to the PS5 category, and someone who is looking to try and move up the order here. He's got Paul O'Regan for company as he wants to try and make that pass.
Yeah, of course, looking like he's got a lot of transferable skills from his old haunt. Already up 4 spots in this race as early as lap 5 now, and he's got someone we know, Paul O'Regan, again, one of the most consistent finishers in iRacing Grand Prix Tour history, just concertinaing up to the back of him through the chicane. It's a really good exit, and he's having a peek down the inside. I'm sure he's got a couple of overtakes down at the Nürburgring over his years in F1 competitive sim racing. So the new fastest lap for Eduardo Radice as the DRS is open. for Darunia. Is going to have a look down into turn 1. O'Regan derating already. He is going to send it. They'll be side by side into the apex. And it looks like O'Regan's just going to let that one go.
Yeah, it's going to have to prioritise his finish always, and in front of that as well, Jorge Martinez losing out. That was Brad Newman getting down the inside and making the pass. So Brad making progress now, puts him with 1 SimSpeed Championship point in 10th. And Martinez here really struggling here through this phase right now. He's a driver who has won here last year, of course, and is a driver that you look at and say, when he's on his best form, he's up there. He's a top 5, top 3 race-winning caliber driver. It's been a tough start to the season for Martinez here, and he'll be looking behind at Connor Pooler, who would admit himself that he's struggled with qualifying out there. His race pace has been good here, has Connor's, but now, as he looks to crest the rise over to the Xiaomi corner here, which is next left-hander, looking straight down the inside, Connor Pooler, oh, he ate that one up absolutely wonderfully, and Darunia picks a freebie around the outside of Bilstein.
Yeah, you can just see how much Martinez is struggling. I can't tell you why either, because it doesn't look like he's doing anything particularly wrong with the car. Paul O'Regan's going to take advantage as well, having a peek down the inside of the chicane. Doesn't get that one stuck, but Martinez just absolutely hemorrhaging positions right now. And whatever it is he needs to sort out inside that car, he needs to get it sorted quickly, because otherwise he's just going to keep falling down the order. Already down into 13th and getting challenged for that too.
Yeah, most drivers looking around on a high downforce package here today as they all go about, so they'll have as much wing as possible. The only exceptions out there I'm looking at here are maybe the 2 soft runners who are on track, which is Kent Nielsen and Adam Webb, who have gone for a medium downforce package. The only 2 drivers, I think, in the entire field who have made that call. Fastest lap, though, comes in from Jacob Reed, and this is a great insight now to how he uses his tyres. 131.3, 4/10 quicker than Radice on the medium. So Jacob Reed is now going to try and jump up the order. He's got 16 seconds of clean air to Jason Green, and so he will now use that to the best of his advantage. Nielsen, we look behind him with Alex Hagland looking to shadow him right now on circuit. Adam Webb just in front. Nielsen, the Canadian, most starts in the series. Mr. Experience right now, trying to run away.
Yeah, and you can see him taking great advantage of those soft tyres as well. Going to be lacking a little bit of grip in the corners compared to the high downforce runners, but just using this tyre earlier on to try and build the gaps to those around him that may catch him later on in the race. Of course, that medium downforce package is going to give him a great chance to be able to defend later on. But I think you've just spotted something from Walter Lux, Sverry.
Yeah, he was battling with George Van Rensburg, and I think he may have actually made contact front to rear coming into the Vidal chicanery. He had to abandon the corner as he went through, and now Anthony Katz flown through on the front stretch to the Ravenel corner, which starts this lap. Volta looks down to 6th position. He was up as high as 3rd at points here in this race, so he's looking around and looks, I think, is going to be a little bit sheepish about how that one's all come about, because he knows how important his run is right now. He knows that he's right up there in the championship, and he has a golden chance today to potentially move P2.
Well, fortunately for him, he's got a Jacob Reed on a softs to the end sort of strategy. So if he knows about that, depending on what sort of overlays he's got going on, he may be able to eye that one up and think about the switch. Here is Walter Lux just after that incident. You can see that front wing just bent upwards a little bit, so there's going to be a huge reduction of downforce at the front end of that car. It's just, again, it's a bit of a concertina effect, and it's barely a touch on the rear end of Van Rensburg's car, but with how delicate these cars are, a touch like that is all it takes to bend carbon fiber.
I think that reminds me very much of, I think it was 2003, Fernando Alonso versus David Coulthard, and Walter Lux playing the role of David Coulthard and his massive chin absolutely fantastically out there on track. But at the moment, finds himself P6, and now look out here because it gets busy. Kent Nielsen through on Adam Webb, so that moves him up into 7th position, getting that done out to the Falcon Bogan and up to the Vidal chicanery. And now Alex Hagland sits and waits. Brad Newman has now found the back of this train as well as they run down lap 9 here of 60 in towards the opening corner again.
You know, Sperry, I love it when you make references to all of these really old seasons of F1, because talking about that Alonso Coulthard incident back in 03, I don't think I was even forming memories at that point.
Please don't make me feel old. Please don't. But at least at this point, we can have an existential crisis mid-race. But at the moment, it will be one existential crisis for Alex Hagland, who can't find a way through at the moment, and he is desperately searching to try and find that way, that pass that is going to unlock itself, because they are holding each other up now. Guillaume Darunia has now pulled himself onto the back, and that will soon bring Connor Pooler onto the back of this group as well. So movement being made here, and these drivers are making progress on the softs. They've got themselves about 8-9 laps in, and the tyres have cured.
Which is a little bit surprising to me, to be honest, especially when we saw how long the softs were going to be able to go. You'd sort of expect them to be able to beat the pace of the medium tyres deep into this run. But again, I think with that bit of a DRS train that we always seem to start to see form at this sort of track with, you know, tracks with only one DRS zone, it's what's creating that difficulty in overtaking right now. All of the opportunities are deep on the brakes. Speaking of deep on the brakes, Hagland has had to go at it early into this race down into turn one. Got it stuck last time. He's going to go again on Adam Webb. It's a big wiggle, and this time he's going to go deep and off into the gravel. And on a move that he's made work earlier on in this race, second time round, it ain't successful.
Well, you're always trying to outbrake the driver in front, but if you overcook it in the corner and lock up the fronts like Alex Hagland did, he's going to pay the price there on the exit of turn one, and he's lost out a number of places, now down to 12th with that. So looking for a gain of 1 in the end, he loses 4 for his troubles, and now needs to try and gather it back up and go for it once again out there on track. With Brad Newman here in 9th position right now, car number 7 in the field on his iRacing through the Goodyear hairpin right now, which is very much carousel inspired down at the bottom of the circuit, and then back up the Schumacher S once again, looking over towards Xiaomi Corner as the next place to go. But you're always trying to harvest that battery. That's why you see the rain light flashing on the back of these cars, because they are saving energy through the corner so they can deploy that energy recovery system along this long run up the Falkenbogen.
Thank you, Sperry, for giving me a chance to talk about the ERS. We love the way the hybrid energy gets used in these cars. If you're in that DRS, in that slipstream, you can turn the hybrid down to a build mode and try and give yourself an advantage over the car in front of you. We saw it so much at Suzuka last week. Remember how early the rain lights were flashing on the back of those lead cars. You see it really early for for Adam Webb here. Not early enough for Newman to get up the inside, but he's using that slipstream, using that DRS, using that build mode just to build that battery advantage over Adam Webb. Give it a couple of laps, and that's when I expect him to turn that deploy map up and really start to go for that move.
Well, the group gets larger here behind Adam Webb, because he's now got the likes of Jason Anderson Jr. on the back and Jorge Martinez joining that group as well. So it's getting a bit more of what we'd like to call a Trilly train style moment, where Adam Webb is effectively the blocker for everybody else to try and get through and to run on by. And this is where it gets interesting here with pit lane delta, 22 to 25 seconds. It is on the lane, and all of these drivers sit just on the cusp of 22 seconds at the moment. If someone like Eduardo Radice with his near 3 second, well in fact 3 second advantage at the front of the field tries to go in. Anderson Jr. we know has a great turn of pace if his qualifying is anything to go by, but Junior right now out of Bilstein, DRS flat wide open, looks at Jorge Martinez then just in front, realizes I'm close, but not close enough to make that move. Heavy on the brakes, up into the Vidal chicanery. Hyundai N-Curve ends the lap.
It is terrifying how quickly these cars scrub off speed, especially into that huge braking zone down at the chicane. I almost think it's more impressive than how much G they can pull in the corners, because they are doing more on the brakes than they do whilst they're turning. Here is Anderson having a big look down the inside, does manage to get alongside, and there's a lockup from Martinez in front as he's going to lose out on another spot and fall to 14th. But highlight of that one, it's a big bold move for Jason Anderson Jr., who got that one done on his own.
Well, it's very much a massive turnabout here. Oh, that is a car around there. And that's trouble for Guillaume de Rugna, who's around, rear wing gone and suspension gone as he now crawls across the circuit here and looks to get to a stop. You don't often expect to see mistakes like that, but turn 4, you can unsettle the car. De Rugna takes the tow back to the pits. A snap of oversteer the moment he put the throttle down.
Yeah, we'll get a replay of that one and see exactly what happened. Here is de Rugna coming through turn 3, but it's turn 4 where it all went wrong, catching a little bit too much of that curb on the inside. Car snaps on him, turns around, and then Mercedes decided to develop a 9X8. I think in frustration, he rolls that thing slowly off the circuit. I'm sure a lot of the drivers that fed their way through there would have preferred he'd have held his brakes, but you can certainly understand the disappointment from de Rugna in that moment.
Yeah, that is a tough one to swallow, but not much that he can do. There's your race leader, Eduardo Radice, running through at turn 2. Now the AMG Arena, he hits the new part of the circuit. When I say new, it's now 23 years old. Now this variant of the circuit, the last known big renovation that was done on this Grand Prix layout from where it was in 2002 over to 2003. But Radice, 3.5 seconds clear of James Byrne in second, is doing all that he needs to do at the front, just keeping the pace up and honest. And speaking of moves that are done, Jason Anderson's picked up another one. This time he's got by Alex Hagland at turn 1.
Yeah, as I was going to say, it's down into turn 1 yet again. Holds it around the outside of 2 as well, as Hagland tried to re-challenge, but then just commanded the corner into 3. Nice, easy move up to P11. Jason Anderson Jr. on the move.
Yep, he's certainly flying, and Adam Webb will be looking behind now because Brad Newman's trying to eye up that pass and gain another position out on track. This would move him up to 8th place, which would be a gain of 5 out there in this one. You can see their rear wing there is certainly working, but you're seeing a lot of their, I would say, exhaust fumes coming up over the top of the wing there of Adam Webb. I don't know whether it's that, whether it's the gurney flap that he might have out there at the moment, but Brad Newman right now is trying to give chase, but not close enough up here into the Vidal chicanery to go and make an attempt happen. But we'll be looking at other places on the lap, and I wonder whether he gets a drive out of 5 and tries down the Padgett Racing curve at turn 6. That difficult corner might be a place for him.
Yeah, what I'm trying to spot is the speed difference at the end of that back straight between Adam J. Webb and Newman just behind. But of course, Webb is running that medium downforce package, as that is Newman going for the move. I don't know if there's a little bit of contact down there.
No, it wasn't.
Was that Connor Puller even? I might be getting a little bit lost. No, it was Newman who got all the way down the inside of turn 1. And it was almost surprising because I was about to comment on how good Webb's medium downforce package was working for him to hold on to those spots. But when you have a car that built a run over those last few laps, turns that hybrid map up, big dive on the brakes, using all that downforce, all the grip in the tires, it was a tricky move, but look how far back Newman is. He got that one done.
Oh, he had to lift off slightly to get himself to the inside. That is actually really tough to do. Once you hit the brakes in this Mercedes W13, you're normally committed to the corner there, Taylor. So for the way there that Brad Newman was able to pivot the car down to the inside of the apex, he was expecting to follow Adam Webb, but immediately fly through. That just shows you the level of skill that Brad Newman has, and that comes from that long tradition of Australian drivers loving the V8 supercars out there on iRacing.
They certainly do, and those cars are a lot of fun to drive, I have to admit. But here is Adam Webb. He hasn't dropped back too much in the last lap or so, doing a great job to hang on to that gap that he has to Brad Newman. But they are going to come onto that start-finish straight now. Newman is now going to be the car punching the hole in the air. Webb behind with the DRS open. We are just focusing on, I think that's Anderson here, who's been so aggressive in this race so far. But Webb not retaking that position and actually losing out a little bit into turn 1 this time.
Well, Junior's had to really work out there on this track after starting this race from the pit lane, which was a bold decision. Not quite sure why that decision was taken there by Jason Anderson Jr. It's from the Carolinas out there on circuit, so he's certainly hoping he can get a good run. Thinking about it over at the Padgett Racing curve, now looking to pick the run up here off of the exit right now, and that will give him the charge now to attack over towards the hairpin. But again, Connor Puller able to extend extend that braking zone as he goes through the Goodyear hairpin and works back up the hill once again. Jason Anderson Jr. has got a very lovely run through the Schumacher S. No worries about there, dealing with the dramas through the corner of having dirty air. He was very much happy to follow. Off the circuit wide goes Pooler. This will compromise the run now through Bilstein, and surely Jason Anderson Jr. now has all of the battery to use up the hill with DRS. Thank you very much out to the Falcon. Bogan gets it wonderfully done as he runs through the Vidal chicanery. Welcome to the top 10.
Yeah, that one's set up all the way back at turn 8. Fortunately, we had a wonderful onboard camera there so we could see exactly what happened. Anderson Jr., with that slightly later apex through the hairpin, was able to fire the car off the corner, get the run up the hill, and keep that pressure on Conor Pooler all the way through the Schumacher S, all the way down into turn 11. And then it was just a case of get that DRS flap open and get clear before you got on the brakes for the Vidal chicane.
And I wish you could have all heard what Conor Pooler said over the radio after that move. He said, "Do not cut across me like that, or I'll put you in the barriers."
I mean, it's an aggressive response, but it's almost a fair one. It's the sort of thing we don't like to see in racing that often, especially when you do get that massive concertina effect. Honestly, I can't tell you the amount of times that I did that whilst I was driving LMP1s on iRacing, and because of how early we had to brake to get the battery back into the car, you just end up with an LMP2 or GTE in the back of you half the time.
Yeah, so you've got to be really careful about where you commit. Of course, Jason Anderson had the overspeed to go and make that happen, but of course, if it gets any closer than that, a driver like Conor Pooler, who is trying to commit to his line, could very easily run up the back of a driver doing that sort of manoeuvre. So it's more of a warning to be careful as you go about. A lot of gaps forming here at the front of this field. 3.5 seconds. Your race lap is as James Byrne sets the fastest lap now of the race. 1:31.3 here on lap 17. So the medium's coming into the New Englanders window out there at the moment. Into the pits, lap 17. Volta looks. He's now going to make his stop. And he was struggling to get back by Anthony Catt. And this is about the window we expect. The earliest taker, I would say, to make a stop. Jorge Martinez is going to follow as he goes into softs. And you know what? They're going to be followed as well by Paul O'Regan.
And I think this is a fair call. The undercut is going to be so powerful here, especially with that slightly shorter pit lane. Lux did actually pick up a little bit of damage on that first stint, so coming in early to get that front wing changed and bot on a fresh set of soft tyres, I think we're going to see a little bit more pace out of the driver of that number 6 car, and expecting to make up at least 1 or 2 spots off this pit stop cycle.
So the wing change would have been for the contact with George van Rensburg. It now puts Volta Lux, by the way, behind Jacob Reed, who's just got through on Jason Green in the easiest pass known to humankind. Jason Green moved over to the right-hand side on the exit of turn 1 and said, "You are the 2-time world champion, most points in this series, most wins in this series. I'll let you go because you're not my fight."
I'm sure Green didn't put that much thought into it. It would probably have been something a little bit more simple, such as 1 car go fast. I'm not getting in the way of 1 car. Goodbye, 1 car.
I think it would have been very much like that out on track. So Jason Green looking to prioritise his finish out there. He was the only driver in 2023 to race the entire season as Conor Pooler now dives into the pits. And as that happens, Jason Anderson Jr. eyes a pass on Adam Webb looking for this place. Diving down to the inside, going for it at turn 1. And Webb's going to try and cut him back under, but he gets way too much of the curb on the inside and has to give it up going through. That turn 1, that descent drop, is very similar to another one of the Herman Tilke design corners out there. Turn 2 at Sepang.
Yeah, okay, fair. I'll give you that one. It's certainly just about as dramatic, but turn 1 certainly proving to be one of the favoured overtaking spots here today. And I definitely think that's what we expected. But Anderson Jr. being one of the drivers to take the most advantage of getting it stopped down into there. But I think one of the more interesting things that I'm spotting about the way drivers are attacking down into 1 is the amount of space that are leaving each other. Of course, you'd expect them to leave that amount of room because we are, at the end of the day, online internet racing. You have to leave space for the netcode. But at times, it ends up being 1 or 2 car widths just because of how the track widens down there towards the apex. And it seems like they're all just naturally giving themselves extra room, and it's what's making these overtakes a lot more interesting because the attacking car is compromising their line to the inside and actually letting the defending driver have an opportunity to come back past it too.
Eduardo Radice responds at the front of the field, 1:31.2. Then for a fastest lap out there, gap still around that 3.7 mark as they cross the line. But Adam Webb now really finding out how much pressure he's under at this point. Alex Hagland looking to get a good run right now. The sun comes up and looks as Jason Anderson Jr.'s 31.1 is now the fastest lap of the races. He's now on the back of Brad Newman. Hagland close but not close enough here into turn 1, out on track. But the rest of the track, believe it or not, runs a very similar width to what you see on the Nordschleife.
Yeah, and it's one of the more interesting things about this circuit. I think it's really impressive how they managed to capture the energy of the Nordschleife on a proper Grand Prix circuit that still feels like a Grand Prix circuit. And it is what makes overtaking so difficult, but what makes the overtaking so interesting. Just whilst we've got a second, I do want to give a big shout out to James Byrne today, a driver that is absolutely killing it out there on circuit, up 5 places off the start. You'd think that might have been a bit of a fluke considering where he's been for the rest of the season, but he is holding on, he is fast, and he may actually bring that car home second today.
He very much might do. He takes a lot of curb there going in through the final corner, the Hyundai N curve, and taking that Tony Hawk rail, so to speak, going through that final section. You've got to be very alert to it. Brad Newman, your biggest mover at the moment, up 6 spots out there in this race. But you look around at James Byrne, what he's done. He's been consistent, 6th and 7th places so far this season for James Byrne on what is his initial season in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. To be up here in P2 shows that he's got a great turn of pace and that he can, at times, challenge for the race lead and the race win, which is what he's trying to do today.
You know, for once, Barry, the commentator has... Oh, okay, Adam Webb going for a spin. We'll jump to that one instead because that one is just a touch more important. A rare mistake from Webb. I think it looks like it was down there at turn 1. Hopefully we'll be able to get a replay and see exactly what happened there. So here it's going to come. This will be... this is the overtake that I was about to talk about, actually. Commentators kind of striking you, Sperry, because Jason Anderson Jr. made those up 6 spots for Brad Newman into up 5 as he got right down the inside and cut across to the outside yet again. But there's Adam Webb just getting it all sorts of wrong on the entry to 1. Rear axle, absolutely no support. Around he goes down to 10th.
Well, he wouldn't have much help there from the medium downforce package. You'll see that much for certain, but he tipped it in and the car just decided it didn't want to grip up the way that he normally does. So Adam Webb dropping down behind Alex Hagland now, and that puts him into 10th position with the pit stops that we have seen out there in the race. Connor Pooler, by the way, has come out ahead of Jorge Martinez for position and about 3 seconds behind Walter Lux out there at the moment. So Pooler's definitely giving chase. Lux, of course, had to change the front wing with the contact with George van Rensburg out there on track, and George is one of those drivers who is a little bit hit and miss out there. He's got the second most retirements at 14, one of those few drivers who's only had 1 podium in his career. His last podium, of course, 2022 Indianapolis.
And it's certainly been a while since 2022. We are almost 3 years removed from that now. So definitely looking for a chance to get back up there on the podium. But here's Nick Burke, someone we haven't talked about so far at all today. The only reason we are because he is coming under a lot of pressure from Jacob Reed. Jacob Reed has already been on those soft tyres for 17 laps. Under any other circumstances, we'd be talking about the end of the stint for this compound of tyre, but he is still getting pace out of that rubber. 1:31.935 last lap. Car in front, Nick Burke on 20 lap old mediums, 1:32.594.
But he'll also look behind Will Jacob Reed, and Walter Lux 1:31.420 out there. So I think that will tell you a lot out there, that Walter Lux is going to have pace here on Jacob Reed, and Reed is going to look at those drivers behind. And at some point, he will have to pay the piper. He can't stay faster than drivers there forever. And you look at that consistent 3 tenths, 5 tenths of a second. Jacob Reed might have to convert to a 2-stop.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. All he's really done since he's come out the pits, on average, is lose about I think 10 seconds relative to the leader. No, sorry, 5 seconds relative to the leader. He came out 37 seconds back on Eduardo Rodis and is now 42 back, just not really making those inroads that he wanted, especially even battling through all that traffic.
And there is your race leader, championship leader. And if this doesn't go the way that Jacob Reed wants it to, he could pull a full race clear as Lux sets the fastest lap of the race. I would like to see the championship standings if they were to finish like this at this point. Lap 22 here of 60, because Eduardo Rodis picking up the full Monty 25 championship points at the moment would certainly be looking around and saying, this is where everything will stack up. And you look at it right now with Jacob Reed putting a 0 on the board, he would be a full 25, well, I'd say even more points clear than that out there at the moment. He would be a long way clear of Jacob Reed right now at this point.
And how many times have we talked about how big the gap is between Reed and Rodis and then the rest of the field? If everything finishes how it is right now, Rodis is going to put that same gap on Jacob Reed. But again, I will stress, we've got 20 more races after this. There is more than enough time for Reed to close that gap down. But Eduardo Rodis cruising to a 1 race win lead after only 4 races.
Yep, so 4 races down and already a race lead gap to try and pull back, I think would be quite huge out there from all of these drivers. And this is going to be where you try and wake up, because you know that Byrne and Kamar and Van Rensburg and Kat and all of those drivers up to 12 will need to go and pit once more out there. So by no means is it stuck and stationary. And speaking of which, Jason Anderson Jr. is trying to make that progress, but Brad Newman keeping himself in play. Looks again with the fastest lap of the race, trying to keep himself alert and honest out there on track. This is him getting a 130.6 down, and he's going to be on the back of Jacob Reed, who can't get by Nick Burke.
He is as well. He's within DRS, so as long as he can stay within this window by the time they get back down to turns 11 and 12, he will be able to open that rear wing flap. But you said it yourself, Sperry, Reed just doesn't seem to have the pace advantage he needs over Nick Burke to get by. But saying that, Burke has just let that gap to Reed close down a little bit, going a touch wide at 8. Reed on that better line on the inside, gets some air on his front wing, will get a better exit up the hill. There'll be nose to tail through the Schumacher S. Is Reed going to have a peek down the inside of 11? He's about close enough, but not brave enough to make that one work. Well within the DRS. As they come out onto that back straight, that rear wing flap will open, and this might be Reed's opportunity to get by.
Well, if he needs to get by, he needs to do it now through the Falcon Bogan, up the hill, and now getting the clearance. Will Volta Lux follow? Oh, they're going to go 3 wide almost, up into the Vino chicanery. Nick Burke just about holds his station. Jacob Reed breathe a sigh of relief. They went either side trying to get that past. Volta Lux now will try and angle on here for the front stretch, and another passing attempt that comes into play. Burke, though, has DRS to try and defend with, but here comes Lux straight down to the inside. He'll look to pick this one off at turn 1 and does so with ease.
That was almost absolutely disastrous for Walter Lux. It was a case of Reed and Burke just giving each other a little bit more room and space than perhaps either of them expected into the chicane. And Walter Lux just going through that as if both the drivers in front were on a completely normal line. Ends up getting a bit of overlap with Burke on the way into the corner and with Reed, and backs out so late that there was almost more contact at the apex between him and Burke. But as we watch that replay, it's now Lux that's right on the tail of Jacob Reed down into turn 8, which is exactly where Reed found himself a lap or so ago.
Oh, look at the difference as they go through the Goodyear hairpin. It shows how aggressive a driver like Volta Lux wants to be on the 2-time reigning champion Jacob Reed, as he thinks about which way he wants to construct this move through the Xiaomi corner. Now over at Bilstein and back up the hill again, looking for this drive. A little bit of gravel kick up, but the Falcon Bogan's the best place. No battery for Volta Lux. This is just pure DRS up the hill to get get this move done. Jacob Reed, nothing he can do about that. A lovely pass made. Lux runs a little bit wide. There will be a chance heading through the final corner to go and attack this one along the front stretch. So Lux, now needing all of that battery, is going to just dump it all here on the straight, moves right to the middle of the road. Here comes the look now from Jacob Reed. He tries to go around the outside. Lux defending is the Austrian on the inside, and Conor Pula diving down the inside just behind.
Yeah, solid move from Paula on Burke there, getting it stopped hard on the brakes. But I think what we're seeing from Reed right now is a bit of a sign of the times as to how those soft tyres are going to last. We know that the wear is basically zero here at the Nürburgring, but even then, we are still seeing a massive drop off in pace from a driver that we expected to be one of the quickest, and it'll be an indicator to the rest of the field just how fast you can go and for how long you can do it.
5.5 seconds now, your leading margin for Eduardo Radice, who is not shaking off in terms of his lap time at the moment. 1:31.1 is his fastest lap. This time, 1:31.1. There's your live standings on the right-hand side. 93 points, plays 61 points currently between Eduardo Radice and Jacob Reed. A leading margin of 32 championship points as in comes Anthony Cat.
Yep, that it will be for a set of soft tyres to go to the end of this one. We are just before halfway. So again, as we were just talking about, I think this is going to be a little bit early for Cat to actually move on to those softs. We of course have Lux, Paula and Martinez, who switched over a lot earlier. Cat's going to have a better life towards the end, but again, I just don't feel like at the moment the pace is going to be there in the final few laps.
Well, Cat's ahead of Volta Lux because of Lux having to make that pit stop with everything out. Conor Pula through now on Jacob Reed. So Reed now having to really be going through the ringer. That was done up into the Vidal chicanery once again. So Jacob Reed in struggle street at the moment. Anthony Cat now finding his move through, and an all-important position there for him as he realises now that his place is quite happy. He's up there trying to get the undercut on the likes of George Van Rensburg, for example, trying to get up there and get that fourth place, which is what this battle's going to be there behind dealing with, which will be for about 6th or 7th with Conor Pula now, as Lux is right up there with Anthony Cat with tyres completely up to temperature.
Yeah, you beat me to that one, Sperry. Lux's tyres well up to temperature. Cat having to build up to those optimal pressures and temps. Lux is going to have DRS on the way down to the Vidal chicane, this time by Cat with absolutely nothing to defend with. Will just pull to the right-hand side of the circuit. Lux to the inside yet again and is well clear before the apex. Walter Lux up to 10th. That is one SimSpeed championship point.
Yeah, but he will pick up more with Newman and Anderson and Hagland, who have to pick, and Nielsen, who will have to come in as well. And Nielsen not too far, by the way, off the back of George Van Rensburg currently, 1.2 seconds. Lux takes the fastest lap of the race. Last season, he would have scored a SimSpeed championship point for it. You don't get points for fastest laps anymore.
No, you do not, but it's still a point of pride to get that fastest lap. Speaking of people that are going fast, Jorge Martinez with a move down the inside of Nick Berg for P14. Another move down at turn 1 with the DRS on the brakes, on the inside, shortest line, steal the apex. Move done, Nick Berg down 1.
Done and dusted. Now look how busy this gets behind George Van Rensburg here in 4th. Ken Nielsen on the soft. Jason Anderson Jr. now bringing himself up into the group. Brad Newman finds himself there as well. They're all together and they're all proving that this is going to be a tough race. But Ken Nielsen, he is the toughest battler in this field. If Jason Anderson Jr. wants this pass, he's going to have to earn it off of Ken Nielsen because he'll fight with everything. In comes George Van Rensburg off the front of the group to make a pit stop. Ken Nielsen now is going to have full defense. Green light on the dash means he's got DRS to defend. This time down the front stretch, Jason Anderson Jr. won't be able to pull up even as he goes in towards turn number 1. Nielsen's got it covered for now.
Yeah, DRS plus that medium downforce package, giving Nielsen all the extra top-end speed he needed to defend that spot. But the one thing that really surprised me there was Anderson Jr. getting right up to the back of Nielsen before the apex of 1 so quickly. He has been so aggressive on the brakes all race long. We've already seen it go wrong, but even then, he is giving it his all, as that's what Walter Lux just moving up past George Van Rensburg. So he has managed to pull off the undercut, even with that front wing repair, and it's now Van Rensburg with all the work to do.
Well, George Van Rensburg will realise that that is an important move done by Walter Lux, who just set the fastest lap of the race to get that clearance that's needed here. So that effectively puts Walter Lux up now into P4 out there at this moment. This is a really telling moment of this race, knowing that each and every single position is being fought hard for out there, and these drivers are going to, who are right now on the back of this, when you look at Brad Newman, Jason Anderson Jr., Ken Nielsen, these are drivers 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. This is the points battle you got right now. It's when you choose to come into the pits and try and gain that advantage on the tyre, as in comes Florian Kammeyer from 3rd, and wide goes the one driver there who didn't need to go wide, all the way to the pit wall to try and defend. Ken Nielsen now trying to make Jason Anderson work hard for his place. Round the outside of turn 1, he's going to have to try and do it inside for the arena as he enters turn 2. Ken Nielsen has to yield. Jason Anderson Jr. now moving himself up to 3rd.
And you'd be surprised that he managed to pull that move off as well, especially on that harder medium compound of tyre. Nielsen forcing Anderson Jr. to do every single bit of the work there, and just the lack of grip on Nielsen's car right now, not giving him the chance to cut back to the inside for an attack into 3. This is Anderson Jr.'s chance to really run now and put some pressure onto the likes of Van Rensburg, onto the likes of Lux, and try and build himself that little bit of time, that little gap to switch onto the soft lane and push towards the end.
Florian Kammer's just come out of the pits. He's around as he's gone through at the Paget Racing curve, all on his own, no contact, and now he'll fall out the top 10.
And he'll lose out to the drivers we were just talking about. Cat having a look around the around the outside of 8. Even Kammeyer on that advantageous inside line. Cat clearly not happy with that one, weaving around behind the German, but Kammeyer is going to be kicking himself with that one, especially at his home race.
He is going to be furious. Oh, he's got again! He's got again! Second time round, Connor Paula just avoids it. Kammeyer, when it rains, it pours.
It certainly does, and I think that's going to be a little bit of the nature of the beast with these tyres, especially with how the heat really built up when you get them sliding, and it still carried that thermal deg all the way down to 11 and 13. He's going to try and come back on Jacob Reed, and he actually gets that one done into the chicane. So Florian Kammeyer driving angry as the one car comes down pit lane for a new set of tyres.
Well, this is a really tough day for Jacob Reed here. He's going to have to build an entire pit stop back as he comes in and makes that pit stop then for what is his final time. So out of the Paget Racing curve. Oh, he snaps it just as he tries to put power down.
Yeah, and it just keeps going as well. He rolls it off the circuit out the way of anyone else and rejoins actually really cleanly. We're going to see the onboard of it as well. It looks like it was just on throttle. Yeah, it was all on throttle, just stabbing his right foot down a little bit too aggressively, and the rear tires still coming up to temperature.
Leaders in.
Just couldn't handle that sort of input.
30 and 30 for Eduardo Radice, as we'll take a look at the second moment here where it goes wrong as he goes through the curve. Again, it's right as he hits the high levels of torque, right at the point where he wants to switch gear from 4th to 5th. You can see it's every time the blue light comes up on the dash.
Yeah, it is that hybrid motor, that electric motor kicking in, and the 1,000 total horsepower that these power units put out. And again, with the thermal deck, with the way the tyres are still technically coming up to pressure, just the rear axle could not handle it. But fair play to Kammeyer, he seems to have got back on top of it almost straight away as he's looking to make those positions back up.
Well, it's now here, the battle between Nielsen and Newman. Radice has come out the pits as Newman lunges for it at turn 3, looking to get it done in the mid part of the arena and get the move done. Doesn't work, but you look out, Radice out and away. Only James Byrne is the one driver there as Alex Hagland has made his pit stop, and he will be out and away. Lunge down the inside of the Paget Racing curve. They just leave each other enough room. It's going to be a duel of the fates down towards Goodyear, and Kent Nielsen still holds.
Yeah, Brad Newman pretty much got that one done, but couldn't get the power down on the exit of the corner, and Anderson Jr. was able to hold onto that one for now. But Newman doesn't look like he's done yet. Those red-walled soft tires well past their best on all four corners of Kent Nielsen's car, and he's going to have to think about coming down pit lane soon. But I certainly think it's a strange choice to stay out this long, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't pit this time by.
Well, he's trying to go to his numbers that he's been managing to do, and it's down. That's late! That's late! Front wing almost goes. Ken Nielsen goes straight on. That was too late from Ken. He'll dive to the pits, and Brad will be fuming as your race leader, James Byrne, is also in.
And that was such a disappointing moment for Kent Nielsen as well. He was driving so clean all race long, but with that one misjudged moment, that really late defense, it just let Brad Newman drive into the back of him after already committing to the corner. And that's why we don't like reactive moves in motorsport. It is the one way to guarantee an incident, and Kent Nielsen has really bit himself in the rear there.
Well, he is the driver with the most non-finishes, the DNF king at the moment, with 15 out there in the championship, and Nielsen's out of the frying pan and into the fire. Radice retains the race lead, but Marquez now through on Kent Nielsen, who's now going to have to fight on a set of medium compound tyres to the end of this race, which will be very tough to deal with. Pooler, by the way, through on George van Rensburg for position. Important move in the context out there right now, and I am looking around at certain drivers here who will be trying to gain the results that they need. So you're thinking about who's come in, who's made stops, who's done what. Don't look at Jason Anderson and think he pitted on lap 1. He hasn't. He started from the pits. Connor Pooler right now in P8 will be looking at this going, this is going to be a great pointal from starting P19 out there on the grid.
I think the most interesting part about all of this is the tyre deficit we're going to have at the end of this race. Jacob Reed showed us just how much those softs are going to fall off by the time you get 20 laps into that run. So we're going to see the likes of Anderson Jr., Newman, fall back a little bit in the early phases of the start of their stint, but keep an eye out for them in the last 10 laps or so of this race, because that's when their pace advantage is really going to shine through.
Jason Anderson Jr. then is going to pull down into the pits. He will get a set of softs on and will now look to charge forward out of the pits. Through goes Adam Webb. He looks at Anthony Catt, who will be side by side with through the opening corner, and it's Catt who now tries to run around the outside, scamper across the road and get through. Can't manage it. Jason Anderson Jr. holds for the moment, but his tyres are cold, and now where's the pass going to be found? Not around the outside of the arena. Anderson now in P6.
We've seen how the tyres can bite you even when you're not under pressure. Florian Kammer going for a spin all on his own. So now it's a question of, can Anderson Jr. hold on to the tyres whilst also having another driver right under his rear wing. Anthony Catt taking an off track down at turn 1 to try and get down the inside of 2. Couldn't quite make that one happen. But now, as Anderson Jr. gets the temperature into his tyres, Catt is going to have the DRS on the run down to the Vidal chicane, and that should create an opportunity for him to squeeze through and take that 6th spot.
Yeah, well, positioning, I think, is going to be rather important right now. Anthony Catt knows that Jason Anderson is lightning fast. Eduardo Radice, fastest lap of the race, 29.7. He's in a world of his own with that sort of lap time out there, because he was a full 7/10 quicker than his rival. No move then from Catt against Anderson. Might be saving up for this straight out of the Hyundai N-curve and looking to attack then with the DRS. But that gap is pretty sizable here for Anthony Catt to try and chase down. But he is 13, 15 clicks faster. Thought about to look to the inside, but could only do that. A thought as they close up to the not yet pitted soft tyre runner that is Adam Webb.
I don't know how he's made these tyres go this long. He's not going to give himself much time on those mediums at all. Maybe trying to give himself a touch of a tyre offset
Oh, look at
to
Kenton
everyone
Florian
else in the field. Well, here it is. Here is that fight between Florian Kammer and Kent Nielsen. We're just seeing the end of it as Kammer made his way out of turn 4 first. Kent Nielsen now 1.1 seconds behind. But just quickly, Sperry, I want to throw into context that 1 minute 29.794. Unfortunately for him trying to hunt the lap record here, we did come to this circuit with 2020 spec Formula One cars, and the race lap record is a 1 minute 28.139. So still a bit of work to do if he wants to beat Verstappen's lap time.
Alex Hagland is trying to find a way by Ken Nielsen, who's on those medium tyres, and is definitely regretting that at this moment in time. Not much that he can do. There was contact about twice there going through the arena between Kammeyer and Nielsen. And also I'd keep an eye on the fact that Brad Newman is yet to come in and make a stop, and James Byrne is only 2 seconds back of him and is going to have to try and find a way to go through. Here comes Hagland round the outside. Oh, he's just left him standing. That's a great pass.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of my favorite sorts of moves on the planet. Go deep on the brakes, around the outside, get clear of the car you're trying to overtake, and that is absolutely job done. But that's certainly Nielsen really starting to struggle now. Here's Van Rensburg squeezing down the inside of him. I think that's going to be Connor Puller. Just about manages to hang on, sliding a little bit wide, but Puller peeking to the inside of 3, and he's going to get the room left to him by George Van Rensburg. Van Rensburg being very friendly there, and it's going to give Puller the run out of 4 through the kink at turn 5. As Martinez wants to get involved too. Puller having a peek around the outside of 6, isn't going to go for it, and will slot in for now, but there's another opportunity coming for him at the end of this straight.
Well, this is for 4, 2, and 1 SimSpeed Championship point right now. This is 8th, 9th, and 10th on the road, and we do know that Brad Newman is due a pit stop, and he pitted late in the race early on at 10 o'clock this morning. He pitted about lap 37, so I reckon he'll do something similar out there here today as Martinez watches and stalks Connor Puller and George Van Rensburg, as again Radice lights the timing screens up purple out there on track and proves that he is top dog and is a net 10 seconds clear at the front of this field right now, close to the Vidal chicanery, but close does not pay the bills right now for moves for Martinez.
I think Eduardo Radice is listening to us, Sperry, because he's seeing me mildly insult his pace and going, you know what, I'm going to get as close to that one as possible. But here we are on board with Jorge Martinez. It's a big defense to the inside from George Van Rensburg, pretty much defending from thin air there, as Connor Puller wasn't looking for
Adam
at all, as Adam Webb going very wide into turn 3. I think just missing his braking point there. No, he's going wide out of... Oh, goodness me. Yeah, you're right. That is a big wiggle on the exit of 2 all over that AstroTurf. Here comes the replay. I think we got one for you here. Yep, Jason Van...
this is the move that gets it done. Jason Hansen Jr. from a light year back down the inside gets the pass done. Fresh tyres of softs versus old tyres of softs. Webb through turn 2. Now watch this on the exit. Whoa, hold on, Nelly. And he just about manages to keep it all together. There's a good reason why there's runoff there at the AMG Arena. It's to save that kind of incident.
And I thought it was
Nick
all
Burke's in
done
trouble
on the asphalt, on the AstroTurf, but that was certainly just on throttle from Adam Webb. Here's an incident.
I think he's just retired it.
I think pulling down pit lane. Has he gone? It might be a retirement. Into pit lane and falls over to the side of the pit entry and just toes. So I think Nick Burke calling it a day there. A little bit. No, that's the moment on the exit of the final corner, going for a big spin. And actually almost going for one the corner before. Here's the onboard for you. Flicks it in for 16 on the throttle in 4th gear, and apparently that was still enough to send him into a spin. And I always say, if you're not having fun, you should stop doing what you're doing, and I think that's certainly been the case for Nick Burke today.
Battle on for second position overall as Nick Burke found his troubles, and now a retirement here today, the 4th retirement of this race, joining Emily Van Camp, joining Leonardo Bravo and Guillaume Darunia on his Grand Prix Tour debut. But for Brad Newman, he's still under the cosh right now. This is James Byrne, desperate to try and get through. 10 seconds for James right now to defend on what is his net 2nd place with Volta Lux, one of the last drivers to come in and stop right now. Here is Brad Newman, and he will certainly know it as he goes on by. There is nothing he can do. He lets him go because I think he's due into the pits here on this lap. Easy pass for James Byrne to make it happen. Does Brad pull off right? No, he's going to continue again.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's going one lap longer, but I think Byrne wasn't forcing the issue on that one at all. Knowing that Newman had to come down pit lane at some point, and knowing he's got that 10-second buffer to Lux behind, it was of course those couple of mistakes from Volta Lux that's given Byrne the opportunity to be in a spot where he feels no pressure. So just being patient with Newman, letting Newman do what he needs to do, and then taking the chance to go by when it's lap.
Connor Pooler goes defensive as finally Adam Webb dives into the pits off of his softs. Here comes Marquez, who won 12 months ago, or 13 months ago, looking around the outside of Connor Pooler, who is no stranger to pole positions. He's got 2 in his Grand Prix Tour career in 2023, back end of the season. Still has to leave the room here to turn 3, and this jut right, this 90-degree right exiting the arena is a fantastic corner. But look out for Marquez. Oh, just behind him, Florian Kammer had a massive snap. He could have been straight up the outside here for turn 5, but he can't find it, and now they're going to trip over each other, 9th, 10th and 11th.
But look how cool that racing was through the Mercedes-Benz arena. It is the sole reason that I love this track. Side by side for 4 corners between Connor Pooler and Jorge Marquez, creating a chance for Florian Kammeyer to try and get involved as well, as he's now right under the rear wing of Jorge Marquez. And going from attacking, Marquez is now really going to have to think about holding Kammeyer behind as they come through 11 and 12 and onto the second DRS straight of the lap.
We know that 3 drivers in this field have a spotter. Connor Pooler's one of them. He's got Tobias Saul. Florian Kammer's got his good friend Christoph Klinkmann helping him out. And they're going to both try and make a move, are they? At the Vidal chicanery. And there's nowhere to go. Right up over the curb goes Marquez. This is going to be a twofer. Surely down the inside by Florian Kammer through the final corner. Playing a little bit of chicken with the DRS, but confirming that. And now run away. That is Kammer up now to P9, and Alex Hagland watches on.
That was absolute cinema from Florian Kammer. A great car positioning as Pooler almost collecting Marquez at the apex of turn 1. But Kammer played that one to perfection. Like in the 2 cars in front of him, scrapped through the chicane, following Marquez through, and then just taking advantage of Marquez making that mistake, ensuring that he got the DRS on the entry to 16, and then just running on the way down the start-finish straight. Gorgeous bit of driving.
It's some fantastic driving. We know that Adam Webb has come out the pits on a set of mediums here, but the Padgett Racing curve might not be his best friend. Out for the exit, and he does exactly the same thing as Florian Kammer earlier, and that will leave a massive flat spot on all 4s as he looks to try and rejoin the circuit down there by one of the scrutineering hubs down there at the bottom of the track. That was nasty as he goes through the Padgett Racing curve. Very easy to do that though, because you go from a section of circuit there, Taylor, where you're going right down one of the biggest drops on the circuit to pancake flat.
Yeah, it's also pair that with the fact that it is an off-camber corner with massive curves on the inside and the outside of the circuit. It's so easy to unsettle a car on cold tires, especially cold, harder compound tires, and the rear axle, again, just not giving the support that the driver wanted, and around he went in a very similar way to Florian Kammer.
Keeping an eye here on Brad Newman, and he'll have about 25 seconds pit lane transit. At the moment, that will put him slap bang in the middle of Kammer, Marquez and Pooler right now, which is the 8th, 9th, 10th battle out there on track. So he's going to be right in the middle of a lot of very hungry drivers looking for points, will Brad, if he keeps like this. But he's doing very well at this moment to keep the pace of James Byrne just in front. 30.4 on that last lap for him, and really hoping that that pace is going to maintain as he goes on in this race. Newman up the hill here with just a third of this race to go for him. Now dances through the left and the right of the chicanery. Another fastest lap for Eduardo Radice, and Brad continues on again.
Yeah, it's another driver that's making a surprising choice in terms of strategy. I didn't really think the mediums would go this deep into the race, considering how much pace we know that the softs have in them. But I think Newman, being one of the drivers that was using the information given to him from the pace of Jacob Reed, to note that no, the softs perhaps aren't holding up for as long as we expected. I want a much fresher set of tyres for the final 20 or so laps of this race. So keep an eye on Newman. He's going to be coming down pit lane soon, but he still has some really good pace on those very old mediums.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job on them. The only issue he's going to run into is how much time is he going to leave himself to go and attack on those soft tyres when he goes and makes that stop. Speaking of which, Alex Hagland making the move up, and that will put him into 10th place with that pass. Connor Pooler trying to chase him down, no dice, but Hagland now into the points after his 5th place start in this race.
Yeah, fair play to Hagland. He's made it 40 laps into this race so far and has actually got himself in a championship point gaining position. It's a great move down the inside of turn 1 on Connor Pooler. Again, a spot we've seen so many overtakes so far this race. Using that DRS, stealing that apex first, and then pretty much moved on. There was nothing Pooler could do.
Marquez and Kammerer closing up to George van Rensburg here, and the pace very telling at this point. Radice going purple again, 29.4. He knows how quick he can drive out there at the moment. He's nearly a second quicker than Jacob Reed each and every lap, who's down in 14th position. But Kammerer now eyeing up the chase for this, and you're looking at these times, and they're not really moving that much here, the needle between these drivers, as Brad Newman has stayed out again and now has fallen out of DRS range, which I think might be the trigger point for him diving down into the pits. Van Rensburg now is going to have to defend on this front stretch because Kammerer is right in the wheelhouse with the DRS, moving to the inside. Not much you can do about that one, Georgie Porgy Pudding and Pie. It looks like that's Florian Kammerer up to P7.
Yeah, it's a really good recovery drive from Kammerer so far. He's just trying to eke down that gap to the cars in front of him and use the softs as gently as possible. Of course, he is working from a bit of a deficit from tyre damage he will have picked up in the early stages of this stint, but his eyes are firmly set on where Brad Newman is going to come out, because that is going to be his race in the final 15 or so laps of this one.
Yeah, and those final 15 laps, you can count them. They are going to be crucial for these drivers for the minor points, as Marquez looks to try and damage limit after starting 9th. He's in P9, he'd like P8, and he'd like to have made progress here in this race. He's been quite quiet here in this one, but when he's needed to make noise, he has done out there, and I think that's been quite crucial to the way he's gone about things at the Nürburgring, which will always have a soft spot in his heart in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Really struggling with the dirty air, though, coming out of Bilstein, as finally, in comes Brad.
Sperry, I'm going to need your crystal ball. You predicted that one to perfection. The lap that Newman dropped out of DRS and his pace would have taken that little bit of a hit relative to the cars down the field. He comes down pit lane, bolts on a fresh set of softs, and now it's a question of where does he come out relative to Florian Kammerer. Well, to answer that question, it's going to be about 2.5 seconds clear, but now Newman has to do work to get temperature into those Pirellis, as he has a big snap at the apex of turn 1. Just about manages to get it gathered up, but now he's got to be really careful as the car continues to lose traction through the early phases of this opening lap, and it's let Kammerer close well within that 1 second DRS window.
Well, looking for a top 5 out there at the moment here is going to be Brad Newman, and he'll try and rob the 27th top 5 of Anthony Katz's career if he can manage to find this pass to go and gain the place. That's what he's eyeing up, but he'll have to deal with Kammerer first, who dives down the inside at the Goodyear hairpin. Cold tyres coming into their own, and Kammerer with this second wind after the double spin that he had on his outlap, well, he knows the feeling all too well. Great move.
Well, I will say it's a 14-lap difference between the life of these soft tyres, so I think Newman knows that he doesn't have to be too aggressive to get that spot back. All he needs to do is wait out that pace drop-off from Florian Kammerer. I did like that different usage of lines down at the hairpin, though, and I really like seeing an overtake happen down there, as I think we've been waiting for one in one of the more difficult spots to get it done all race long.
I'm keeping my eye here on Jason Anderson Jr. Podium is not out of the realms of possibility here with 16 laps to go, or 17 laps to go, sorry, because you've got Volta Lux at 4.5 seconds, and Lux on that last lap lost 7/10 to Jason Anderson, who is driving possessed at this moment. Close in towards turn 1 goes George van Rensburg, not close enough. Marquez following on behind. Hagland and Pooler, their own separate little gaggle as well behind. Those 6 cars out there, split by, I would say, just about 4 seconds on circuit. But Hagland would love to catch the back of this group if he possibly could.
Yeah, he can't shake Connor Pooler at the moment, though, and he's going to be thinking about that car that's just within his DRS window. But what he really needs to do is get his head down, keep his eyes forward, and focus on closing the gap to Jorge Martinez, because him, Van Rensburg, Newman, Kamaya, all going to start fighting at some point towards the end of this race, and Hagland needs to make sure he is there to take advantage.
29 fours in 3 of the last 4 laps. He does have a 29.3, does Eduardo Radice, but it comes with an off-track incident out there on lap 39. But that is the official fastest lap of 29.413. Brad Newman under pressure. There goes George Van Rensburg down the inside, straight on. Jorge Martinez will find himself through. He'll rejoin the circuit, taking the endurance chicane.
And like I said, these 3 cars are going to start scrapping, and look who's there in the DRS window. It's Alex Hagland. Martinez 9/10 of a second behind both of the drivers he was just battling with. So the 16 car is now there with Martinez, and he's going to start thinking about a brand new driver in this fight.
Yeah, Hagland in 10th, Pooler in 11th. They can start sniffing points now, and more points if they can find it. Martinez, just such a massive difference as he came into the braking zone. I think it's really important to take a look at how far back Martinez came from. Van Rensburg happy to make that move, moved over to the left-hand side, got it. But look at Martinez, look how late he goes on the brakes. He has to, oh, how does he avoid that?
I think he forgot what layout of the track he was running, because it just looks like he was so distracted by the 2 cars scrapping in front of him. He blows the braking point completely, has to take to the grass, takes that Bedsweck chicane, has to set a slowdown, but it certainly wasn't enough to make him lose a position. It was a really good bit of avoidance driving there.
Another fastest lap, Eduardo Radice, this time no doubt 129.317. He is now 19 seconds clear at the front of the field over James Byrne. Volta Lux is staring down the barrel of Jason Anderson Jr. A great recovery starting from the pits to be eyeing up a podium out there here after a front row qualifying start indicated the pace that Jason would have today. Another 7/10 on that last lap. He has taken 1.7 out over the last 3 laps.
Just for reference quickly, Reed got 26 laps out of his softs before he decided to call it a day on them, whereas Waterlux up there in P3 at the moment has been on these tyres for 29 laps. So his tyres, if Reed's are anything to go by, will be well past their best, and at this rate it is going to be not long at all before Anderson Jr. is right on his tail.
I'd like to talk Jacob Reed for a moment. He's eyeing up 12th place right now, and that is Kent Nielsen on the medium compound tyres. He got through on the last lap on Paul O'Regan, and he needs to start making this progress as Jacob Reed. He knows he can't catch that group in front on pure pace alone. He's relying on an incident between 2 or 3 different drivers to score points here, and this is what you call what happens when you're on your bad day. He had a poor qualifying, which has set him up for contact early on, a 2-stop strategy he didn't want to be on, and overall he could wish he could just write this race off. Kent Nielsen running through the Goodyear hairpin, and Jacob Reed will know all too well how difficult it is to pass this Canadian.
He's going to have to be really patient if he wants to get this move done, though. Of course, that medium downforce package on Kent Nielsen, just giving him a little bit more at the end of every single one of these straights. But we know how powerful the DRS is. Nielsen's going to have absolutely no help from it on the run down here. Rear wing opens. Oh, he actually closes the DRS through the kink and isn't actually going to have the overspeed to get down the inside, and will slot in for now, but he's got another opportunity coming his way, Sperry.
Oh, he's so much better with drive off the exit. That higher downforce package gives him a lot more confidence through the acceleration phase, and he almost taps the rear diffuser of Kent Nielsen. Now this becomes a big battle over to the middle of the circuit. Which way do you go here to go and make this pass? Outside line searching goes Jacob Reed. Will he have the power off the exit? He looks for the drive. He'll get the drive as he goes into turn 2 and enters the arena fully, and that was lovely from Jacob Reed. P12. And now he hopes for dramas to happen, maybe with Van Rensburg, Newman, Martinez, that group.
Well, we've already seen it threaten to kick off for this group in the battle for P7 on track. Of course, they're all going to be hoping to not repeat that one and all trying to bring it home to actually score championship points. But Reed will be hoping, praying, begging that at least 2 of these drivers get tangled up in some sort of incident so that he can get something out of this race rather than the big fat goose egg that he's scoring at the moment.
Well, Jacob Reed will lose 1 stat here with a 12th place finish. He will lose the overall lead, which he's tied for at the moment, for most top 10s in Grand Prix Tour history. Anthony Catt, who's currently scoring in 5th place right now, would move on to 42 top 10 finishes and would regain the category lead in that regard. As here comes Brad, tyres back into the window he wants, down the inside. George Van Rensburg opens the steering up. Brad's not having everything his own way here. He now looks to crisscross him. And where's the applesauce? Big defence by Van Rensburg. And now everyone starts to trip over each other and looks for angles where passes can be made. None found.
Yeah, Hagland even having a look into turn 4 there as everyone slots back into line. But Newman can smell the blood in the water for Van Rensburg. He has been on these tyres for a decent amount of time at this point, but there is Newman getting a poor exit off turn 7. Marquez looking for a way down the inside of 8, can't find it this time by. Newman's going to gather himself back up, but he needs to get on with it again because he's about to slip outside that DRS window on Van Rensburg.
Well, this is the issue here for Brad Newman, and I wonder this is why he decided to go long. Maybe he just can't unlock as much out of the soft tyre as everyone else.
No, that's certainly a good theory. I quite like that one. We know how different all these compounds of tyres handle, and different drivers are going to have different strengths. Of course, we bring these tyres to each and every track on the calendar. We don't change it like they do in Formula One in real life, but they're still going to behave that little bit differently at each track. We saw how they had to go for multiple more stops at Suzuka because of how high the deg is. And we're seeing those 1 stops here today because of how little the deg is. So perhaps Brad Newman just not able to get the pace out of the tyre and much more used to looking after the rubber.
And this is where Brad Newman now really wishes that he has a little bit more out there in the tank to work with, because Marquez is keeping himself honest. Alex Hagland, still there in 10th position, is keeping this one honest. Connor Poole has been dropped from this group, by the way, 3 seconds off the back now. He finds himself, and he is also in the same boat as Jacob Reed. Please, can one of you just come together so that I can score some points out here? It's a very tough day at the office that you seem to find, but Brad Newman here is trying what he can as Eduardo Radice continues his purple tirade at the front and now hits the 28.
He's sneaking his way down towards that 28-1, isn't he? Getting all that fuel burnt off and trying to go literally as fast as possible. We'd love to see it. We'd love to see drivers pushing all the way to the end of the race. But I certainly hope Eduardo Radice doesn't make me eat my words. But speaking of lap times, Jason Anderson Jr. has just been chipping away at Walter Lux for the entire time. 5, 6, 7 tenths of a second per lap. And if he keeps it up at this rate, Sperry, he is in DRS next time by.
Well, it was 1.35 over the line last time by. Here comes the straight, and watch out here as they try and line up. Marquez trying to get into the mirrors and distract through the opening corner. Van Rensburg dangling at 8, 9 tenths of a second here is just what Brad Newman needs to survive.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's going to want. Newman just, again, still struggling on those soft tyres. Here is Walter Lux, though, currently in 3rd place in this race. Jason Anderson Jr., 1.2 seconds off the back, not quite closing in as quickly as he has been for the last 10 laps or so. But Lux on 33-lap-old soft tyres. He has equal age softs to Jorge Marquez. And again, you see how he's struggling with that pace. There is that pace advantage that Anderson Jr. has. 1.2 seconds is the gap. Can he get it all closed up into the chicane?
Walter Lux finished 3rd at Phillip Island and 3rd at Suzuka. He's looking for another 3rd here today at the Nürburgring, and of course a 4th place finish at Mugello. If he finishes 4th here today and rather than 3rd, it would be his 9th 4th place finish in the championship. There's only one driver with more 4th place finishes in this championship, and that's Anthony Catt, who's got 10 of them out there in this. So he's really trying to find that podium number 7 of his career, and his 5th finishing in 3rd place, just keeping the gap out there to just enough. But as we all know here, Taylor, the toughest gap to close is 2 seconds to 1.
And yeah, Anderson Jr. is really struggling with it. These soft tyres on his car getting towards past their best. A lock up into 1 and a lock up into 3 is going to put damage on that rubber that will carry all the way through the last 10 laps of this race. He's been catching by those half a second or so for the past goodness knows how many laps. But in the last lap, he only managed, in fact, he only managed to close by 0.3 of a second, which is barely anything, but he might have a shot at getting there now as he just gets within a second on the way into 11. We'll see how that one develops over the next half lap or so.
And here's the move from Alex Hagland, getting it done on Jorge Martinez. This one was for 9th position and a gain of an extra sim speed championship point. DRS up the hill, out of the Falcon Bogan, in towards the Vidal chicanery, and easily done by the Swede, who now looks to score his first points of the season if he is to finish in that 9th place overall. So that will be a big smile to his face at the moment, so to speak. But there's DRS for the first time. Jason Anderson Jr. in range, and Volta looks here. The Austrian is going to have to really worry. He takes a big line through the opening corner, trying to keep everything at range right now. But this is where it pays not to use all of the circuit, but just to drive within the means, just to know what the tyres can do.
Well, you have 17 incident points to play with here as Newman goes a little bit wide at 1 and Van Rensburg squeezing his way down the inside. He will try to go around the outside, and these two will keep scrapping through the Mercedes-Benz arena. I think actually, Sperry, that's Newman making up a spot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Brad through, and he really took advantage of that over the last lap or so. Needed to make that pass, and crucially, did. Now back into 7th, but look at the time that they've lost here to Florian Kammeier out there at the moment. That's nearly 6 seconds.
And you almost wouldn't expect it, but if you actually were watching the battle between these guys, it's easy to see why it happened as Newman becomes the lead car in this train. Now is to deal with Van Rensburg. Here comes the replay of that move down into turn 1. Newman is going to have a look down the inside of turn 1. Van Rensburg defending the middle of the road, and it's a big send into 1 as he almost loses the back end. The brake migration on that car helping him get that car rotated, but certainly over rotated.
Watch out for P3, because Jason Anderson Jr. has got to run in towards the opening corner. Outside line searching. Junior round the outside. That will put him on the last spot of the podium. What a recovery from a pit lane start.
And yeah, I think that is the highlight of this race, is this driver started from the pit lane and is now up in 3rd place. Big snap of oversteer between turns 3 and 4. It's actually given Walter Lux a run as Van Rensburg and Newman are going for a scrap as well. Lux forced to the outside of 6, couldn't make that move work. Anderson Jr. will hold on, but Newman and Van Rensburg absolutely going at it for P7 as well.
Well, watch out, because Lux was thinking about it into Goodyear and nearly had himself the drive, but now he's got to try and hold and keep himself there and win. Jason Anderson Jr., remember, pitted lap 33. Look at the run up to Xiaomi. Here comes Volta Lux, straight on back for the outside. They are going to duel this one for the podium. Lux still trying to hold, gets the angle here at Bilstein. Anderson's got the DRS though and will attack right up the Falcon Bogan to try and get it back. But he's got to harvest battery as he does so. Side by side, they will go to the Vidal chicanery. Lux gives him the room through the middle of the corner. They trip over each other, but crucially, Anderson gets the run.
But the question is, how much energy does Anderson actually have left? He's going to be the driver susceptible to attack here with Walter Lux on the DRS. I'm trying to see if we've got some flashing lights at the rear of either of these cars. It's a swing to the inside for Anderson to defend, but he doesn't have to defend from anything because Walter Lux will stay behind this time. But does Anderson have the energy, have the life left in the tyre to now pull away?
Jason Anderson Jr. pitted lap 33. Volta Lux, remember, was one of the earliest takers in the pits. Lap 17. 16 laps difference on a set of soft tyres. That is where the delta doesn't come back to play well for Volta Lux. When a driver like Anderson has much fresher tyres and can go and battle it back. It's 6 seconds to Anthony Catt a bit further back. But crucially there, Lux on that lap, those drivers lost 4 seconds tripping over each other trying to make that pass.
Yeah, but here's the one for Anderson Jr. now, is he's just walked away to a 1 second gap before they get to the last DRS zone on the lap. Lux, at this point, I think is going to have to settle for 4th place. Big question mark is, does Anthony Catt now have the pace to close onto the back of him?
And Kamai.
The life gap between those two, it's about 10 laps or so, and we've seen how big that advantage can be.
And Florian Kamai, who's only 1.5 seconds back as we watch Paul O'Regan here, not in contention today for the top 10, but still looking to battle Kent Nielsen here. This is 13th and 14th, and remember the retirement ratio for Paul O'Regan. He has never retired from a race in all of his starts. His 49th start today. Kent Nielsen, the most retirements here today on his 64th start out there. So lots of experience, over 100 races between them, and two very contrasting fortunes between those drivers. As look at Kamai now at just 1.1 here to Catt, as George van Rensburg loses out to Marquez, or does he?
He's certainly made an effort of it. Marquez tried to have a go around the outside of turn 1 to take the inside of turn 2. Couldn't quite get there, but will have another shot into the apex of 3. Van Rensburg all over the marbles on the outside there, taking that much tighter inside line for 4. Here comes the run from Marquez. He's going to look to the outside of 6 and has to back out this time. Van Rensburg on that much more advantageous inside line.
Yeah, and that was a case of how committed were you going to be through the corner. Marquez couldn't, but now he looks around and he thinks every time he's got a chance. He'll have a much better chance, though, at the end of this lap. They've been dropped by Hagland and Newman now, and so this, for George van Rensburg, is the slow descent to 1 championship point that he can't do anything about here in the final 5 laps here of this race. They are on their 55th lap, but you're looking around. Volta Lux, he's not giving this one up here with Jason Anderson. He's keeping himself within DRS range, and now he might have a chance to fight back. It might be who's got the last punch in. Anderson defends. Here comes Lux, looking for the podium. Onto the outside, not quite.
I couldn't tell you how many starts Anderson Jr. has in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, but it doesn't seem like he has a handle on energy management at all. Every time we've cut to him, that rain light on the back of the car has been flashing. He's either stuck it in attack and is just burning all that energy, or he's just left it imbalanced and doesn't have enough to play with when it comes to Volta Lux making those moves. Lux, with the much more experienced head, taking advantage of everything that the Mercedes W13 has to offer, and is keeping himself in this fight for the podium.
Very much is. All the way to the pit wall goes Kent Nielsen. Here comes Paul O'Regan. This one is going to go for 13th. And on the AstroTurf there, trying to get the turn in. Paul's now going to have to attack off the exit. Oh, that could have been disastrous for Paul O'Regan. He just about holds it, but now he gets the drive. Looking for the inside. Kent Nielsen covers.
And there it is, deep to the inside of 3 for Kent Nielsen. He's going to squeeze to the inside of 4, and there is contact at the apex there. O'Regan forced off the circuit, will have the advantageous inside line, but Kent Nielsen, with all the confidence in the world, sweeps it around the outside of 6, takes the normal racing line for 7, as Lux versus Anderson has taken another step up in intensity.
Yeah, the move made, and the move made earlier on, going up the Falcon Bogan. So that was wonderfully done. Anderson gets it back, but now with 4 laps to go for these drivers, watch out, here comes Kamai, looking for a top 5, trying to rob it off of Anthony Catt and not having it, and now Hagland down the inside. The battles come 2 by 2 by 2, and Van Rensburg defending from Jorge Marquez. Wonderful stuff.
I don't know where any of that came from, and I have no idea which of those battles to focus on. But I think the biggest, most interesting one there is this scrap between Anderson Jr. and Volta Lux, because again, Anderson Jr., just with the lack of experience in this series, can't take advantage of all the pace his car has. Walter Lux is almost being handed this one a little bit on a plate. If he can just hold on to those tires in the final, well, it's going to be 2 laps to go, 3 laps to go even when they cross the start-finish line. But he's not going to have DRS here, so maybe this is Anderson Jr.'s chance to start to run away. But what a surprising turn of events here.
It is really a case here for Walter Lux that he's just got to hold himself steady, keep himself in play, because he can keep Jason Anderson Jr. honest. Kammeyer gets his man and gets the pass up the Falcon Bogan. Had to go the long way around back to a top 5, and those 2 spins and the way he had them, he could have been fighting for that podium, you know. He could have been right there. Anderson with the fastest lap, 28.4, trying to get it done, but Cat comes back, searching for the outside. Here as he goes through turn 1, the Ravenel corner, not getting that one done, and ultimately having to stay as it is. Hagland, no issues this time with 3 to go with Brad Newman. Now will look to break away, and Kent Nielsen battling right in front of your race leader.
Yeah, I think Radice is going to take the smart choice to just stay off the back of this one. O'Regan 4 tenths behind, hasn't peeked to the inside of the Vidal chicane, doesn't go for it because he was nowhere near close enough, but of course he's setting up for that run down to turn 1. There's Eduardo Radice's eyes well up the road as he comes round the final corner to go for 2 laps to go. It is popsicle sticks as Paul O'Regan moving to the outside of Kent Nielsen. Nielsen squeezes and there's big contact on the way into the corner. Nielsen just clipping the right rear corner of Paul O'Regan's car, almost sends him into a spin, but I think, Sperry, that fight's going to be over for the remainder.
Well, they were fighting incredibly hard. Paul O'Regan stuck on the outside. Kent Nielsen moved well across the line there, and undeservingly so taps Paul O'Regan through. And now look at that gap for 3rd place, 1.1 seconds. Walter Lux is agonising over this with his 2 laps to go, knowing that Jason Anderson Jr. just has the legs on him at this stage, and there's nothing he can do with his old set of tyres. Kammeyer still having to defend from Anthony Cat as he left this too late.
It certainly feels like it for Cat, but here's Hagland and Newman, a similar situation, but we've seen how aggressive Newman has been on the brakes down into turn 1 all race long. Unfortunately for him, he's only going to have one more opportunity to try and make it by at the end of that DRS zone, because Eduardo Radice is coming into the Vidal chicane for the second to last time, and when he comes out of turn 16, he will take the white flag in this race.
And that will be waved by Barney, the flagman, to indicate there is 1 lap remaining here from the Nürburgring, and an all-important lap for Eduardo Radice, where he will know for the first time as he gets DRS and will look to put the move on Kent Nielsen and comfortably do so, that he will be 1 championship race clear after just 4 rounds of racing action over a driver with the caliber of Jacob Reed down in 12th position, who's got nothing to take from today except the commiseration of knowing he's got a lot of work to do. Florian Kammeyer, the closest battle right now. This for the top 5 is going to be under pressure here from Anthony Cat, who will now line up the end curve with everything that he's got. Dump the battery now, almost a tyre in the gravel from Kammeyer as he searches and desperately searches. Lux might have a half chance on the final lap as well to make a pass, but here comes Cat, outside line searching. Kammeyer staves off the charge, and behind here comes Brad looking for a move on Hagland, who just holds around the outside. Excellent stuff between them, but not much more that could be done with that. We got to go to Eduardo Radice, who moves himself out of Bilstein corner, up the Falcon Bogan, and over towards that Vidal chicanery. He's only a couple corners away from being 1 race clear in this championships, and the excellence of Eduardo in the Eiffel Mountains will prove itself to be known. Dominance here today. Radice wins at the Nürburgring, and now you look back to those drivers. James Byrne, a long hold for him. It will be a magical 2nd place finish for him, and Jason Anderson right now, I think, has just got the legs here, Taylor.
Yeah, Anderson doing an absolutely great job in this race to get himself all the way back up to third place. And even with that little wobble in the middle of the stint, has just about managed to keep himself in front of Walter Lux. They will cross the line only 1.5 seconds apart. Walter Lux doing 44 laps on that tyre. And on the final lap of the race, Jason Anderson Jr., the fastest lap of the race with a 28.361.
Well, it shows how tough that was to try and chase him back. If he puts that lap down to finish it off, Kammeyer gets his top 5 over Anthony Cat, but Cat will take the most top 10s now in series history as Marquez over the line picks up the final points, and we will wait for car number 1 to finish. Well, this is the story of the race, isn't it? Jacob Reed, contact with Emily Van Camp on the opening lap of the race. Netco contact, putting him wrong place, wrong time. It's a bogey track for him. He just can't get any luck.
Which is a shame for Reed, but as I kept saying all race long, Sperry, he's got 20 more races to make this happen. He can recover from this little bit of a blip. We saw how strong the middle of his championship was last season, but ultimately, your driver of the day, you could say, is Eduardo Radiz with that absolutely dominant performance.
Well, you say dominant, I say dominant. 23 seconds clear at the line. Eduardo Radiz beats the 2 Americans, James Byrne and Jason Anderson Jr. I do wonder how much Anderson Jr. would have fought for the victory here today were it not for the fact that he just had that pit lane start and fought so hard back for that podium. Walter Lux would end up in 4th position with Florian Kammeyer there in 5th. He was just able to beat Anthony Cat to the line in 6th ahead of Alex Hagland scoring his first points of the season. Following that was Brad Newman in 8th position, who gave it all he could and was up there for the majority of this race, but on a very different strategy. George van Rensburg would find himself in 9th, and after victory 13 months ago, Jorge Marquez can only manage a point here today in the Sim Speed Championship. 10th was all that he could manage. Connor Pooler would end up in 11th overall, as 12th would be in the back pocket of Jacob Reed. Kent Nielsen and Paul O'Regan would be the first drivers, 1 lap down, with Adam Webb in 15th and Jason Green in 16th, your last finisher. Your retirees from this race are Nick Burke, 26 laps down, Guillaume de Rugna, who found himself with trouble going back across the circuit, Leonardo Bravo caught out with the front wing damage after turn 2 from Emily Van Camp, who had everything go wrong at turn number 1. So a tough day at the office for some, but some who will be smiling absolutely from ear to ear. And the best bit is, your next round of the championship might be one of the toughest rounds of the season, Taylor. We head over to VIR for the 5th round of the championship, and the best bit is it's in 7 days' time.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a tricky one for a lot of drivers out there in the field. VIR is known as the Nordschleife of the Americas. Certainly convenient considering we are coming from the Nürburgring, but it's a track that isn't very wide, doesn't have very many overtaking opportunities, and is just met with grass on either side of the circuit. It's one of those tracks that absolutely demands respect. We miss the oak tree that should be in shot here. But I think the most interesting thing is we're going to be seeing top of the line, top spec Formula One cars blasting their way around this circuit for 90 minutes at, to be realistic, a track that they do not really belong on.
And again, another circuit where neither Jacob Reed nor Eduardo Radiz has won at. Emil Bernstorff in 2023, Jordan Gronkowski in 2024. It's most likely to see a new name added up in that. To keep your eyes with us at SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, you must like, share, subscribe, follow for all of the amazing, great sim racing that comes along through here as we keep things together. From the entire team of Daniel Yeaman and Taylor Mills, my name is Jake Sperry. When you take yourself around this circuit here at the Nürburgring, there's a reason why this place is known as the home of sim racing. The biggest sim racing exposition in the world, or out there, Sim Racing Expo, is to be quite clear, the best place to go and get your sim racing action. This is a track that demands respect, and at the moment there is no better driver in the world right now than Eduardo Rodis with this car. There is just so much respect that he has, and he has paid his dues through 3 seasons to get to this point, and now for the first time he moves 1 race clear at the front. A day that Jacob Reed would forget over and over again. How he bounces back, I think, might be where he now looks. We will see you in 7 days. We will battle along Madison Avenue. We will see you at VIR.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.